Hello again. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Brattlecast. This is Jordan Rich along with Ken Gloss, the owner, operator, proprietor, and Mr. Curious when it comes to everything in terms of books and collectibles and magazines, and in this case, tourist souvenirs. Now, when I go away on vacation, which is not often, but when I do, a souvenir for me might be a matchbook or perhaps a keychain or something like that. But what you brought is definitely picture-oriented. Why don't you tell us what you have here?
Well, one thing I'll tell you, Jordan, there is one type of collection that we do get a call on every once in a while that we absolutely will not buy, is matchbooks. And one of the reasons we won't buy matchbooks is what's in the matchbook.
Matches.
Matches.
And having had a fire years ago, you don't want to go anywhere near there.
But we do get calls where people have
surprised.
that. So and they're not as collectible if they don't have the matches. But in any case,
okay.
And then I'll tell you what I collect. But these I love. We went to an old house, which we do almost every day, and there were a lot of travel guides. There were a lot of places that they went to. But then there was a whole small collection of late 19th century travel souvenirs. And what they are is they were sort of just predating the postcard because they were all photographs, and they sort of fold out panorama style. And they're views of the cities and places. And a matter of fact, I have one here of San Francisco, and the first fold-out is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 photographs, obviously pieced together, of a view looking over San Francisco towards the bay. And then you have pictures of different scenes, sites, buildings. There are probably about 20, 25 pictures in each one. They fold out panorama style, and so people like them who collect photographs, but also they're in these nice cases. They're probably about 3 or 4 inches by 5 inches. These happen to be in very good condition.
Right.
So you have San Francisco, you have Chicago,
Denver,
the White House, Denver. Then there were also, you had different sizes. This is more about a 5 by 7 size of the Chicago album. Another one is the photographic tour of the Isle of Wight with 96 illustrations.
I'm asking this question because I'm not sure. Are some of these renderings as opposed to photographs because it's pre? For instance, what am I looking at there? Is that an actual photograph?
That's an actual photograph.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, because it almost looks like a portrait. It's
beautifully it does. But they're actual photographs.
Wow, okay.
But that was part of what the idea was. Those were the new, the modern, the items. And I would assume these were probably 10, 25 cents, maybe 50 cents at the time. And when you're collecting them, and one of the things that really sort of caught my eye, and the reason I wanted to do this podcast today was there were a few things that really caught my eye. Just last week, my wife and I were in San Francisco for a book show, and I didn't see anyone who had any of these in there, but there's the views of San Francisco, and this was obviously, the views were pre-earthquake.
I was going to ask, what earthquake? 1906, right?
And these are probably about 1880, 1890.
Holy smokes!
Then we're going in the late spring doing an Antiques Roadshow in Denver. So there's another one. So I wanted to see what Denver looked. I've actually been to Denver before, but I wanted to see what Denver looks like and what San Francisco looked like. You know, they've changed. They've actually, it's different.
100 and so years later, imagine that.
Yeah, 120, 30.
That's amazing.
And then there's an Antiques Roadshow in Baltimore. So there's another one in Baltimore.
So let me ask you this. Did these come from one collection?
These all came from one collection. And I see these every once in a while. You get them. But what you don't see in these, you normally, is whoever bought these must have bought them on the trip, or maybe someone gave them as a gift. and they must have just put them away and not touched them, because most of these are in a condition that if they were in the store now, you could go back that 120 years, they could have put them on the shelf, and you'd say, these are new. There were one or two of them that they'd probably say, oh, no, this got worn while people was
They do
looking.
look in great condition.
Yeah, and collectible-wise...
Let me see this big one here. Yeah.
Collectible-wise, up until fairly recently, these would be $10, $25, $30, depending on what the scene was. Now, one of these scenes is the White House. Another one is Mount Vernon. Now, those aren't quite as high. First of all, they're East Coast, so more people were on the East Coast. But also, lots and lots and lots of people went to the White House, went to Mount Vernon. When you start getting into the Midwest, like Chicago, there are a lot of people not as many people went, although by that time it was still a major center. But when you get out to the west, to San Francisco, Denver, they were still relatively new areas and locations. And so what you get is collectors who like it because of the photography, collectors who like it because they're from the area and like to view the pictures. They make great gifts. But what used to be $10, $15, or even $5 items, I am sure if my father had had these when he first started out in business, they would probably be $2 to $5 at most. The one now on Denver might be $750, $1,000. The one with San Francisco in the same range.
Was there a standard publisher of these? Because they look very similar.
They're very, very similar. But I think what they had in one or two of these, I think the Denver one, you could even put your ad in where it was. But no, these were sort of a standard format. I am sure they had salesmen going around the country and going to like bookstores, to tourist sites, and saying, we could do this, we can produce them, we'll send them out to you, buy 100, buy 500, whatever it was. And yeah, it was one company for the most part putting these out. I don't know which company. Now, here's one that's even probably rarer, is Salt Lake City.
Oh, yeah.
Because how many people went and were visiting Salt Lake City back in the later times? And then they had different sizes, obviously. Mm-hmm. But also, if you put this up even on a bookshelf, it's beautifully gilt, beautiful. And part of the idea was that these would be beautiful looking, so when you went into the store, they'd catch your eye, so you buy them. Right. If you got this same one with the interior being beautiful, but the gold leaf had worn off a little, it was maybe the edges it might be a fifth or 10th of the value. But because they're in such great shape. Now,
which is always the case with collectibles, right? If you whether it's albums or books or anything, the better the shape.
Usually the better the shape, the more the value. Not good shape usually kills most of the value, although there are things that are so rare that even then they're valuable. But it's... You know, I looked at these, and we've got 3, 6, 9, about 12 of them here. It would make a fascinating collection because I am sure that you could there are hundreds of these. I know there are hundreds of these. And I could easily see somebody now going around and, you'd run into some bargains at antique stores or auctions. You'd run into some high-priced ones like at a big book show in San Francisco. But you could put together a fascinating picture of what showed the times, the era, what people considered important in the views and what the buildings that were important at the time.
It's not here, but do you have a Boston one?
I have had Boston ones.
Okay.
I didn't have any Boston ones that were in the condition that these were in. So, but there's Boston, there's New York, there's a lot of... What I would also like to get, and there are some of sort of hot springs, Florida tourist areas. There are some of the national park systems. Those are fabulous. Now, one thing at the beginning of the podcast, you had said you collect matchbooks and so on.
You know, I was going to ask you about this because I was not going to let you go because you teased the fact that you were going to announce what you collect, right?
If we live now, we downsized a number of years ago, but we used to have a whole bookcase filled with snow domes.
Oh.
Hundreds of snow domes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I think we have about five or 600. And once the way it started was my wife's mother would go on vacation, and she'd inevitably forget to buy a gift. And in the airport on the way home, for $3 or $4, she'd get a snow dome, and we'd bring it home, we'd put it aside. Then, particularly when we started doing Antiques Roadshow about 20 years ago, especially if my wife wasn't with me, at the airport, I would pick out a snow dome and bring it back as a gift, sort of, well, as a joke, and we'd get it. And then if my kids went someplace, they'd get us a snow dome, and friends started realizing. So one of the big things when we decided to downsize to a 2-bedroom apartment was that we'd have to give up our snow domes, because where are you going to really display them? So our kids felt bad for us. So they actually got a friend who was a photographer, and he took a picture of every single of the snow domes and made one of those, those photo books you can make up.
Oh, yes.
And
Shutterfly or something.
Yeah, and made up one of the absolutely wonderful
Oh, what a
book.
great idea.
But
what
happened was the apartment we're in is on an upper floor. It has floor-to-ceiling windows that you can look out. But at the bottom, about 1.5 feet up, is a little railing that goes around to keep the window stable. Also, it opens a little and all of the opening. And I looked at it and I go, it's about 5 or 6 inches wide. I go, that would be the perfect place to put our snow domes. So, and our kids almost tore their hair out because the next thing they saw, they came to the apartment and there were just snow domes all along the place. And we still buy them. It's sort of fun. We do have a requirement, though, that they have snow in them.
It isn't a snow dome without the snow. And by the way, I have picked up those things in airports, too. They're for kids, for the little ones, and they love it.
The kids for the little ones, when our grandchildren come over, the only thing we have to be careful is that some of them are glass. A few of them bit the dust to 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
We actually got a great one, because before we'll buy them, we'll shake them up. And some of them just have a little, some are better than others. But, as long as they've got something. We were just in San Francisco, and we usually don't buy the larger sized ones. But in San Francisco, they had one that was more the size of a softball, but it was a fog dome.
Oh.
And you shake this one, and it goes absolutely, you can't see a thing. And it takes about a minute or so for the fog to go down. And
you couldn't pass that up.
We couldn't pass it up. We also couldn't take it on the plane with us because too much.
Liquid.
So we actually had to have it shipped back to Boston. So, these are great souvenirs from somebody who was out in the 1880s. Now, the reason that these dropped off sort of soon after the 1880s is postcards started becoming very available. And 2 things made the postcards really much more popular. First of all, they were cheaper. You could buy just one at a time. But the postal system was getting good and efficient enough that you put that penny stamp on it, and it actually got efficiently to whoever you wanted to send it to home.
Exactly.
So it was really, in many cases, the postcard that replaced these, but it was the technology and the ability of the post office to deliver postcards that brought these down a little bit, but still, they're fun.
We learned so much from this Brattlecast, and we occasionally get personal secrets, you and your snow domes. But I must say, I've never seen anything like this. I've never been exposed to these kinds of travel souvenirs. So
and you know what's going to happen is when you travel a little, and now if you stop in at an antique store or so on, a shelf that you might never have even ever noticed, ever, you go, oh, that's one of those.
It's how to impress my friends.
The ones that are good, though, mint condition.
All right. He's Ken Gloss. This is Jordan Rich. Thank you once again. The Brattlecast comes to you regularly. Ken, have a great day.
I will, and you too, and everybody listening.